Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. This card is another one for my Halloween series before the end of the month, as well as for this week's Color Throwdown Challenge. So for this, I pulled out the Simon Says Stamp Fall Frenchies stamp set. This was released for the big Stamptember release last month, and I've had it propped up on my desk. I had the wafer dies all snipped apart, like everything ready to go, and it's been sitting here now for almost 2 months. Just waiting because it's so cute. So I decided to make this work for this week's Color Throwdown Challenge. So what I did is I put some B watercolor paper into my MISTI, and I'm stamping the little Frenchie and the jack-o'-lantern and the 2 individual pumpkins with VersaFine Clair Fallen Leaves ink, which is just a really nice dark brown. You could stamp an image like this in black, no problem. I like to sometimes move a little bit outside of my creative, rut. It's not necessarily a rut, but you know what I mean? And so many times I'll look at someone's card or whatever, and it's like, there's something about it. And I was like, they've stamped that image in brown. It just looks different. It's a weird thing. I don't know. It's something I've been focusing on lately. Anyway. Stamp the images in that Fallen Leaves ink. And then I'm just using this little watercolor set that came in the Simon November card kit. This set isn't, as far as I'm aware, I couldn't find it anyway. It's not available to buy on its own. It just comes in the kit. But really, you could use anything. Like, it's not like this is like some groundbreaking, fabulous watercolor set. It's just a little, fun to play with sort of set. But yeah, like the little Prima watercolor sets are amazing. You could use watercolor markers, whatever works. But I just had these sitting here because I've just kind of been playing with them since the kit arrived and thought, why not? So the only thing with a watercolor set like this is because it's a cheaper set, there's a lot of filler in it. The higher quality you go, the less filler there is in the watercolors, and that's why the price starts going up and up and up. So the only difference with these cheaper ones is because of that filler, they have that little bit of a chalky consistency, which I don't have too big of a problem with. The only thing is it will start to obscure the images you've stamped. Like when you paint over the lines and then it dries, you won't see the lines as well. But that's why I use my MISTI, because I've got a workaround for that. I'm not too worried about it. So a lot of times with watercolors like this, I will just try not to paint too much over the lines, but in this case, I just didn't worry about it. I was like, I just painted right over it. It'll look okay when it's wet, but then as it dries, you'll look at it and it's like, why does everything look almost like there's like a hazy film, over what you stamped? So that'll be the filler in whatever watercolor, palette you're using. So with this, I just painted them with those watercolors. I'm just using my little Zen. This is the Royal Langnickel Zen number 4 brush, another really affordable brush. I really like these brushes. I kind of forget about them every once in a while, and then every time I reach for them, I'm like, that's right, these are great brushes, and they are dirt cheap. Love it, because I've got some very expensive watercolor brushes, and I don't reach for those as often. I kind of like my little cheaper brushes. So anywho, like I said, my workaround, I watercolored everything, let it completely dry. It needs to be dry. I put these back in my MISTI. I hadn't removed the stamps. I left them where they were. So this way I can just re-ink up the stamps with that Fallen Leaves ink, stamp it, problem solved. All the details back, we're good to go. So that's what I did. And then I ended up stamping and coloring in. There's individual little leaf stamps in this set. So I just stamped them in that open space because I didn't want to waste it. And quickly just watercolor those in, let them dry, stamp them again. And then I'm just going to tape all of the coordinating wafer dies so I can die cut all of these in my die cut machine. So once I've got these die cut, I can get on to making the rest of my card. So since this is for the Color Throwdown Challenge, the colors for this one were cream, orange, and gray. So this is where I kind of was thrown for a loop at first, but then things just started coming together. So I took a piece of cream cardstock and I die cut it with the Bear Tree Oval Collage. This came out last year, the year before, something like that. I'll have links, as always. It's still available, but yeah, this is an older wafer die set. So I die cut that from the cream cardstock. And then I also had die cut the CZ Design Boo Word and Shadow, and then layer those together with a gray and an orange cardstock. And then on this, what's going to be my card front, I'm stamping another sentiment. This is from that Fall Frenchies set. So I stamped it with that same VersaFine Clair Fallen Leaves ink. And then my card base is the same gray cardstock I used for the die cut sentiment. And I cut that to 4 1/4 by 11. Scored it at 5 1/2 with my Teflon bone folder and my little Scor-BUDDY there. So it'll be a top folding A2 size card. And then to finish the inside of the card, I'm just going to line up that little Frenchie in the jack-o'-lantern image along the bottom of the card. And I'm just going to stamp that with some Distress Oxide ink in Carved Pumpkin. It's kind of funny sometimes, like the names of it, it's like, this is perfect. Perfect time of year, perfect color, perfect name. So stamp that on the inside of the card. And then I just lined up another sentiment from that little Fall Frenchie set. It's got that lined up, and I'm going to stamp that with that VersaFine Clair Fallen Leaves ink. So then once that's stamped, I can then get to assembling my card. So really the bulk of the work is done after the, stamping, coloring, and then the die cutting and whatnot. So I decided for this, the cream color cardstock, that I wanted to pop this up with just a little bit of dimension. So I'm using my Simon Says Stamp Big Mama foam tape. And yes, this roll is huge. Every once in a while when people see it on camera, it's like, this thing is massive. And this one has already been, I wouldn't even say it. It's only about a quarter used up. I've only gone through, this is my second roll. Yeah, and I make a lot of cards. Anyway, put that on the back of this panel. Pop that onto the card base. So I've got that little bit of dimension. And then kind of figured out how I wanted to lay out all those stamped images and the sentiment and whatnot. And decided to just adhere these with the Craft Tacky glue rather than pop these up as well. I thought they looked just as cute, just adhered down. So got that all adhered, and then adhered that little die cut sentiment. And then I also stamped the little woof sentiment from the Fall Frenchies set. I just stamped it onto a scrap of this orange cardstock. So I stamped it 3 times with that Fallen Leaves ink. And then I trimmed this out just using my scissors, which I almost never do. It bugs me more often than not because I can't cut straight. I can still eyeball pretty good, eyeball things straight, get them somewhat straight, but I swear every time I try and cut a straight line, it is not straight. Like ever. But with this, with what these are and how I'm going to adhere them crooked on purpose because, it's like dog barking. So I didn't worry about it. I just cut them, trimmed them out with scissors, didn't worry about, using my paper trimmer to make it straight. And I popped those, I popped on with a little bit of that foam tape. And then as a final bit of embellishment, I pulled out some of my Nouveau crystal drops. This first one is the Orange Soda Glitter Drops. And I'm just barely squeezing and just very lightly dabbing it onto the band around his little witch's hat. And then onto the pumpkins, like the jack-o'-lantern and the 2 pumpkins. So when it dries, it's just going to give that little bit of sparkle. But it's not going to be too thick. It's not going to be completely cover the coloring and whatnot. And then I also added as an actual, Nouveau drop. So little circles of it here and there on my card. And then the second one I'm going to use this is the Ripened Pumpkin Crystal Drop. So this one is just the glossy, straight orange, no glitter, no nothing. And then the final one I pulled out this is a Vintage Drops in Earl Grey. And this one will dry matte. It'll dry a little bit darker than it comes out, and then it will dry matte. So you don't have to mix up the finishes and all these things. I just happen to have, of course, all of them because I've collected them for the last how many years. And just wanted to find colors that worked with this color challenge. And this gray was the only one I had that I was like, okay, this is the perfect shade for this card. So I applied all of these. I'm going to, tap my card base to smooth them out a little bit. And then I have to set this aside and I let it dry overnight. Kept my fingers out of it because I'm very bad about that too. Poking at it to see if it's dry yet. Is it dry yet? And it never is. And then I wreck it. So tap my card base, and then when I was cleaning up, I found another little leaf that got misplaced. So I just added some adhesive and adhered him to the tree just to finish it off because he was right there. The card was right there. Why not? So that finished off my card. Now the drops are completely dry. Everything's good to go, and you can see those gray ones, they're quite a bit darker. So they're darker and matte. It's just fun. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a link to the color challenge in my blog post as well if you'd like to check that out. And then the supply list with links, all that stuff. So if you are interested in any of that, you can check it out in the description box below the video as well as on my blog. And thank you all, as always, so much for watching and subscribing, thumbs upping, commenting. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!